Good, we're all good. Welcome and thank you for showing up. We have a couple of guests in the audience too, which we'll get to right after our notice of public meeting. The Winfield Fire Protection District will be conducting a public hearing to be held on Tuesday, December 21st, 2021 at 7:30 p.m. immediately prior to our regular board meeting at the offices of the Winfield Fire Protection District. And the agenda set for this meeting is we're going to call this meeting to order. So I'd like to call the meeting to order. I have a roll call vote, please.
President Gillis.
Present.
Secretary Sauce.
Here.
Treasurer Gannon.
Here.
Trustee Simpson.
Here.
Trustee Saylor's absent as of now.
Yes.
Also present are Deputy Chief Irmer and Attorney Joe Miller. Chief Evans, sorry, I'm so used to you being part of the roll call. Sorry. Yeah, you're here too.
Please have a seat.
Do I get to sit in the front?
No, you can,
We can move it to the back.
you can turn the chair around if you want. It's okay. We're okay with that. The purpose of this meeting is to discuss the 2021-2022 tax levy ordinance number 338. Are there any remarks from you?
I'll make the motion. We accept the,
Now you gotta close the public hearing.
We have to close it.
Public hearing.
make the motion.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion moved. To our perfect board meeting. Call the meeting to order, and I'd like someone to start us in the pledge, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call.
President Gillis.
Present.
Secretary Sauce.
Here.
Treasurer Gannon.
I am here.
Trustee Simpson.
Here.
Trustee Saylor still absent. Also present Chief Evans, Deputy Chief Irmer, and Attorney Joe Miller.
I'd like to welcome to our first meeting. For everyone that doesn't know who Joe is, he's our new attorney. He'll be with us for quite a while. We already found it's already been very helpful in some new suggestions and some new wordings of things that we've been working on, and look forward to the future with it.
Thank you.
Hi, Joe.
Do I have a motion for the approval of the minutes?
So second.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Any public comment? That's you and those two guys. Well, welcome, thank you. I'm sorry.
Oh, I
I
thought
just
you- I
skipped over.
thought- I thought you
I thought
lumped
you
them
I
all.
kind of just lumped them all together.
Oh,
I
okay.
kind of lumped them all together, but if you'd like to,
Well, that's fine.
if you'd like to move again. Okay.
I'll make the motion to approve all the remaining minutes as presented.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Now, there's another chance for public comment. Is there any public comment from the wonderful world of internet?
Not that anybody
Okay.
has offered.
We will offer you again, if you have any questions later, please feel free to join us. Reports. Treasurer?
Nothing of note, other than just the, yeah, nothing new of note. So
Okay,
that's all I got.
did you want to present the,
It's there. It's
Okay.
in your packet.
okay,
And for your approval.
thank you.
I'll make a motion to accept the treasurer's report.
Second. All in favor? Any opposed?
Oh, I said aye.
Let's do a roll call on the treasurer's report. If it's got bank balances or checks, I'd like to have a
Okay.
roll call. Sorry about that.
Deal.
Have no problem with that?
President Gillis.
Yeah, aye.
Secretary Sauce.
Yes.
Treasurer Gannon.
Yep.
Trustee Simpson.
Yep.
Saylor's still absent.
Changing the rules already.
Sorry about that.
It's okay. All good.
Just keep it on.
Thank you, Mr. President. As is my normal report, I start out with the Alliance training for the month. The special operations training was held out at the Crossroad facility, West Chicago, one of our partner agencies in the Alliance. And it was technical rescue, skill stations, along with a highline operation. So a highline basically is something that really benefits the water rescue teams, which were the principal water rescue team, or at least one of the principal water rescue teams amongst the Alliance. So in a highline operation, let's say you have an event in a river, moving body of water, that kind of a thing. You establish points on either side of the waterway and you operate off of the line between the two. So you can get a boat or a swimmer or a diver out to a certain position in the river, and then be able to move them back, forward, side to side to better deal with the current in doing their assigned mission. So it's a complex operation to establish a highline and then work off of one, and that was the scope of the drill this month. It was a very good drill, very well received, and we got a lot of good trainings, which will help us, unfortunately, when these matters come up. The regular December multi-company drill was also held at the Crossroad facility in West Chicago this month, and it was the topic was firefighter survival. So there were two stations with that. One is there's what is referred to as a confidence course. Members put on all their turnout gear, their breathing apparatus, and navigate a course that is filled with obstacles, low-hanging wires, with an effort you have to move through diminished spaces, all of that stuff to train you for the things in the event that there's a partial or a structural collapse while you're inside of a building, that if things fall on top of you, wires, ceiling grids, that you can extricate yourself and continue to move yourself out. So it's very heady drill, very good drill. And then the second part, they have what are referred to as cans of cargo containers that they set up so that you can do some light burning work inside of them. And we had those going, and it was removing a firefighter from smoke and heat conditions out of a window, down a ladder, safely to the ground. So really good drill. That's what we do every December to train with those all important skills. Companies did really well, and it was a good drill. In terms of the recent events of note, again, we run a couple hundred calls or more every month. And I don't mention every one. I typically don't mention EMS calls for all of the obvious reasons. Usually I'll just point out a couple of events, recent events that were noteworthy. One was on 11/16, actually the day of our last district board meeting. Engine 31 and Medic 32 were dispatched to go to West Chicago for a fire on Stimmel. Engine 31 had mechanical failure and went down. Medic 32 proceeded to that call. Then immediately thereafter, West Chicago was just had a series of calls come in, one of which was a fire alarm to commercial occupancy, and compliments to our crew who the three people hopped in the second medic unit, responded out there so they could start mitigating that event. So, you know, really good work by the crews that day, dealing with an engine failure right off the bat when they get dispatched for a fire, and then being able to pivot quite well. And on November 24th, Medic 32 also went for a structure fire all the way to Warrenville on Birchwood. We had no service anniversaries this month. Other noteworthy items, Tender 31 update. Deputy Chief Irmer and I went to the repair facility, Fire Service Inc. yesterday for a meeting and to drop off Medic 32 for a mechanical repair, which I'll get into momentarily. And met on the status of Tender 31. So the repairs are all done except for the rear discharge, which there is for lack of a better term, there's some sort of a design or engineering issue that they're encountering, trying to get that rear dump chute. Again, a tender being a tender, its primary purpose is to take a large volume of water, 2,500 gallons in the case of our tender, and on a scene be able to dump that quickly into these portable tanks so that the engine can suck the water out of the little pool, put water towards the fire. And then that tender will leave, go secure, presumably in our area, a fire hydrant, refill, come back, and you just do that circle to deliver water back. It does function as an engine and did for an extended period of time when our engine was out for major repairs, but its primary purpose is to be a tender. And unfortunately, when that rear dump is broken. So they're going to try and do something to get it back to us before the holiday.
Yeah.
And whether or not it's fully functioning, the rest of the repairs have been completed. So that's the story with that.
And they, I understand the rear dump was old school and obsolete. Can they update that to a newer?
We actually went through that in some detail yesterday. The design of, so it's got a poly tank in it. So trying to retrofit it to something else would, in the opinion of the shop, could compromise the integrity of the tank, cause it to flex, break, snap, crack.
Cause more trouble.
So we're looking at either covering that rear discharge and just going without it, or trying to continue to find a solution for that. So that's kind of where we're at with the status of that. The two side dumps are working according to the repair shop. So it's close. It's just a matter of they're trying to figure out, they were dealing with a couple of different vendors, the manufacturer of the valve itself, to try and come up with a solution, and that's been ongoing. And we were dropping off Medic 32, which had a fuel filter.
The fuel filter housing cracked.
Correct. So they're searching for a part for that, and it's got a power steering fluid leak that they're investigating. So that's the story why that's not outside. The SCBA that I've been reporting about quite frequently in the last few months, they're putting them in service on the vehicles. I think almost all the vehicles have them on there now. Again, there was, after we got them, COVID delays for the grant, to refresh the crowd's memory to that. So it was approximately $150,000 grant to buy new breathing apparatus from the federal government. It was a matching grant. We were responsible for about 10% of that. We got the air packs. They're slightly different from our old air packs. So we had some training to make sure that the first time they wore them wasn't into a burning building. So we had that training, including last week at the Alliance, again, using it under those kind of conditions. Good final training. So now we started putting them in service on vehicles, which is happening as recently as today. They were finishing that off. So thank you to the crew. So that's the story, the update report with that. I've also reported recently about Starcom radios. So we have these Starcom radios, a special proprietary system that gives incredible range. They're incredibly good radios. It's an incredibly good system. And it's been adopted by the two dispatch centers, or PSAPs, primary system answering point, within DuPage County, as funded by the Emergency Telephone System Board, ETSB. And those radios have reached their end of life. So the ETSB, in compliments to Chairman Schwarzy, Directors Irwin, and also Warrenville Chief Andy Dyna, who sat on that committee as well, for doing a lot of hard work. And we're arriving at a place where we're about to get the replacements for those radios. And included in that are going to be what is one of the agencies currently don't have, and that is mobile radios that are also part of that Starcom system. So they're going to replace our old radios with those Starcom radios when they come in, which we're not sure when the timeline is going to be for that, but it's going to be in the relative future, we believe. Yeah. Another thing I've been reporting on, so ESO Solutions and Flow MSP. So we're dealing with a bunch of new computer software packages. When we report, every call that we report to the State Fire Marshal's office, it has to be what's referred to as an NFIRS report. So every call we go on, one of these reports has to be submitted. The software suite that we use to do that advised us recently of it was reaching its end of life. They're not doing what they do anymore. So we had to find a new vendor, of which there was a couple of readily available options that other places use, and really the only two that I'm aware of. And we did an evaluation went with the SO, so there's a lot that's involved in that implementation. One of the side benefits to going with this new program is the fact that we can have a much more robust system. We can start doing things with some of the commercial occupancies and starting to input information so that things like calls can auto-populate, which will help out our quality assurance part of the business and all of that stuff, putting in business occupancy information, being able to track scheduling stuff, being able to track occupancy inspections. So there's a lot that goes to it. With that, there is another program which we just entered into an agreement with, Flow MSP. So we have our alliance partner agencies. We are the only one of the alliance partner agencies that doesn't currently have. We just entered into an agreement with this company, Flow MSP, which does a lot of pre-planning stuff. So imagine this: when you're responding to an incident on the MDT, you can bring up pictures of the building. It'll give you locations of where the key box is so we can gain entry, where the utilities are located, the alarm panel, dimensions of the building, type occupancy information, all that other stuff. And the side benefit to that is the fact that now when our partner agencies are responding to our places and vice versa, us to them, we can take up that same information. So now we can all talk to each other and we can all see real-time intel while we're responding to calls. And another big advantage to a district like ours is this: in those areas where we have considerable distances between a water supply and an occupancy of house or whatever, we can now on that Flow MSP program be able to measure distances so that you can tell a particular incoming engine, you need to stop at such and such a house and start leading into the next engine, so we can get all that stuff established, saving time, getting us putting the fire out properly better. So all of this stuff is talking to each other, all of this stuff is communicating. Deputy Chief Ermer, Andrew Martin, and Lieutenant Fermento are doing incredible work getting all that stuff assembled and getting that stuff on. We're hoping for a online date of February 1st. So a very aggressive timeline, and the guys are working really, really hard to make that happen. Anything to add on that?
Really good. No, so far, the occupancies that Martin already had and all the things that he already had just is rocking it. And then the only other thing is they have a conference coming out. I know we'll end up sending Lieutenant down to really dive into it, but we're gonna dive into some of that stuff. But a lot of things happening very quickly.
Yeah.
A lot of work going on.
And to that point, we're also investigating some IT solutions. We've historically had some issues with our email system and the storage in that email system. We don't have a lot of storage. Consequently, we can't maintain a lot of old emails. The mailboxes get filled up quickly. So we're looking at a more comprehensive IT solution to include the things like the MDT, the mobile data terminals, the computers on the rigs. So having all of that under one umbrella to really provide better.
No, mine shouldn't be full.
It does. I get bounce back. So that's while we're doing all this other stuff, it was important to do this as well, because it's all going to tie together very, very nicely. And we've got it down to a few final vendors for second interviews.
Yep.
And
2-3 vendors are left. Yeah, hopefully have a recommendation in January for you.
grant updates. So the Alliance submitted a joint grant to FEMA for a mobile ventilation unit that was just submitted, just so you know, we're still working every grant angle. And then we don't have any word yet from the Office of State Fire Marshal about the grant we submitted for an air cascade.
Which is what fills the tanks? Yep.
Yeah, so we got the new air packs. Now, a lot of agencies, so back when I started, we had these big, huge tanks that were filled to 2,216 pounds per square inch of air.
You drug my horses, right?
Yeah. So we got the last version of air packs, and they were 4,500 PSI in pounds per square inch of air pressure in the tank. And the latest version is 5,500. So we're exceeding the capacities of our fill station. Actually, that exceeds you have to put it in a special container and close it in case something blows up. So the blast strength of our fill station is exceeded by the 5,500 gallon, 5,500 PSI bottles. So we have to go over to West Chicago to fill them. The compressor itself will fill the bottles, but it's 25 years old. So we're trying to
Takes a while.
we're trying to find some grant opportunities to offset those costs. Lexipol, actually, we have been working hard. Deputy Chief, as soon as he started, got going on that, getting up to speed with all of that policy stuff that we're doing about. Attorney Miller was kind enough to provide us actually with some model policies that we're trying to read through, fold in with our Lexipol thing. So there's a lot of work going on and a lot of reading going on that front. And thank you to the attorney for that, for providing us. It was a huge help. RFP for the roof proposals was posted, went out today.
Not today, it's posted. Will be in the paper the 23rd. Yeah. So we'll have, I put a due date on that for January 30th. So we'll have all that back and let you know the recommendation in February.
We don't think
And then we'll be ready.
it hasn't rained in a month. We just don't park anything over there. It'll be fine.
So also within this year's budget was, we have the 2 command vehicles and the utility pickup truck. The utility pickup truck is in incredibly rough shape. And one of the command vehicles is not far behind it. So it was a budgeted item. So we're going to start investigating that for future reference, just so the board is aware. Well, I'll get into it in more detail in a minute, but we passed our 2020 call total on November 26th. So we're in uncharted territory ever since then, in terms of call volume. One of our firefighters, Nick Rivera, resigned.
How many calls are you at now?
Actually,
We're at 2280.
22.
so, one of our firefighters, Nick Rivera, resigned and took a position in Schaumburg. We're in the process of hiring a new firefighter, and the status of that, I think, passed the background scheduling for.
Yes, he's supposed to schedule his polygraph.
How long next goes?
Well, part-time or full-time or both?
Full time.
He got sworn in with.
Yep.
September.
Yeah. Fair enough.
He had been one of our part-time. The good news was had been one of our part-time members. So things like uniforms, gear, a lot of that stuff, his physical
It's already there.
was already there. So it was fortunate from that standpoint. And he's a very
Just
young
pointing
person.
out the revolving door every time you get a
Right.
good guy. we lose.
Yeah, well, other districts can afford to pay him more.
We wish him the best.
Yeah. wish him
Yeah,
the best.
he's
Nice young
an
man.
incredible young man, and I wish him all the best. And one other thing I'd like to point out of a more personal nature is, and as has been the case in society in recent times, there's been a lot of illness. It's not just COVID. There's been a lot of stuff going around. And we were not immune to all of that. And at a point last week, was it last week? There was a point when, now understand, 13 square miles, 30,000 people, $741 million of assessed valuation. We were down to 7 people to work 5 spots. And that isn't designed to do anything other than to call the incredible character of your firefighters and paramedics to the forefront, because they absolutely stepped up and did amazing work overcoming that, to not let a company go out of service. So this community owes a debt of gratitude to them every day, but certainly over the last period of time, because they really did amazing work.
Thank you.
Well done.
And the last point is over to Trustee Hannon with respect to the survey.
Yeah, so last month, we decided we we're gonna put a survey out to begin to get some information back from the public about what the general feel has been for the referendums that we've had in the past. We've gotten some some good responses in terms of quantity. We've had 179 responses in the 10 days that the survey was live, which I'd say is very good. The plan is to keep that survey open for at least another full month. We've had assistance from the School District 34, from numerous trustees on the village board, putting it on their Facebook pages, sharing it far and wide to try and get as much reach and as many responses as possible to try and cover the district. It does us no good if we only know what one area wants. Just a couple of things of note. Again, 179 responses to date out of the 10 days it was live. One of the things, there was a question on there, where do you turn for information regarding the Winfield Fire Protection District? And I don't know if this would be something that we would go to them about, or if this is something that staff would go to them about, or what the case may be. But a number of people mentioned that'd be great if our pertinent information could get included in the Winfield word that goes out with the water bills. Right now, that's strictly village driven. And so I don't know how that all ties in, if we have any ability to throw something in, but it certainly, to me, would be a great way to get information out there.
Would that
There's a
add to,
charge, but it's gotta be less than million.
would that add to the confusion of us being part of?
That I don't know, and that's why I throw it out there. It's an absolutely valid concern. I do know though, there's how many houses in Winfield proper? 6,000 homes.
Houses are
Roughly 10,000.
No, I think if,
Probably
So that's
somewhere in
if the
excess of
headings,
that.
if the headings put together properly, the heading could be set up in such a way to distinguish us from the village. And say the village of Winfield is kind enough to allow us to include this in their flyer.
Or if it's an insert within that same, instead of being part of the Winfield word, my thought is if it's instead an insert within that,
I would like to see an insert.
then it's not on the Winfield village letterhead at all.
Right,
And it's
different.
Yeah.
Right, it's different and the verbiage is still there, so they understand that it's two different entities, one on one flyer. I like that.
So just a thought there. I also thought it was, one thing that I think is very good is we are getting some responses, not many, but some responses from people who have not voted previously on the referendum. So I do think it's very good that people are getting a chance to see it and learn about us. Primary people who said no, they hadn't voted previously, they're new to the area. So these are people who are moving in who want to know what's going on with their community and are taking the time to find that survey either through the various forms that's been shared or coming to our website where it sits. So I thought that was very good to see as well. The most important things to me, one of the things was, what do you feel is the most important issue facing the Winfield Fire Protection District? The options that were available for people to select were, or are, having reliable apparatus, finances, having enough personnel, facility safety and functionality, being able to respond efficiently to all areas within the district, or other, okay? The breakdown on the responses is as follows. 10 people wrote all the above. Okay, they hand typed in all the above into that other category, which I think is very important. 70 responses was being able to respond efficiently to all areas within the district, and 66 responses were having reliable apparatus as their primary thing. These are the two things that we have continuously said that we are trying to do with this referendum, and it's the thing that people care the most about. So I do think that we need to make sure that should a referendum be going forward again, those have to be the focus points for the referendum, because again, that is A, it's what we've all been preaching for years and years and years, and B, it is where the rubber hits the road. So you have in your hands some other just notes that I made, but just wanted to share those ones publicly for the benefit of all. So.
Rob asked me if I would email the actual survey out to all of you after the board meeting, so I'll do that tomorrow.
Yeah, it's 179 rows by 6 columns, so I didn't think we wanted to print that.
Well, thanks, Rob, for your efforts.
Yeah.
And I'll compile again when we get together in a month. And
I like the fact that you did this at no cost to taxpayers.
yeah, this was it's a Google Doc. Please go fill it out. Anybody that's watching, if you haven't, please go fill it out. It's a Google Doc. You are not required to sign in. You're not required to leave your name or any identifying bits of information. There is a spot where if you'd like to be contacted by the chief, He has those names. He doesn't have the responses and where it all lines up. It's simply if you would like to be contacted, he can reach out to you and answer any questions you have or provide any other information you have. Lord knows Chief is more than willing to sit down and go over any bit of any of this with any resident at any time or any person at any time. So that opportunity is there, but you are not required to have a Google login or anything else. It truly is as anonymous as you choose to make it. So there you go. Thank you.
Chief Armor, anything to add to any of the stuff that we talked about?
No, I mean, the next part is going into our next RFP stuff.
So that's the complete report, sir.
Okay, thanks. Mr. Miller, do you have anything that you want to add?
Really, no, thanks for having me. I did have an opportunity on Friday to come and meet with the Chief Deputy Chief Robin. We had a good conversation, but yeah. Ed, I don't know if you have any questions for me. If not, I'll be here, plan to be here every meeting. You guys know I live a 2-minute drive away, so.
Or 10 if there's a train.
If there's a train, then yeah, there's been another train, but, I don't have anything at this point in time.
Perfect, thank you, sir. Old business. We discuss and adopt the tax levy ordinance for number 338. So I have a motion for that.
I make a motion to adopt the tax levy ordinance 338.
I have a second? This will be a roll call vote, if I'm not mistaken.
President Kellis,
Yes?
Secretary Sens,
Yes.
Treasurer Hannah.
Yep.
Trustee Simpson.
Yes. Do I have a motion to accept the consent agenda?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Mr. President,
Yes,
if I may.
yes, please.
With respect to the monthly run report, alluding back to my report. So we passed our 2020 total, which was our record year. Passed that on November 26th. Thank you, actually, Lieutenant Pimento. We were at 2278 this morning, so you said we're at 2280 right now. Again, we started the morning at 223 calls up from last year as of this morning. So I think
Over a month's extra
we were
work.
talking earlier today. I think if we average just under 2.2 calls a day for the rest of the year, we'll exceed 2,300 calls.
Now, I had a resident ask, well, there's no fire. It's all just emergency. There's no fires left anymore. There's no fires. How many fire calls do you think you might go on in a week? If you were to average it out,
It's probably around 5.
five
to six.
fires.
And it's not only our district.
Right, no, I understand that. So,
The way mutually.
But
usually, okay,
we've
Yeah, I would
tried,
say,
we've tried it 4 or 5 this week.
right,
And it's only Wednesday,
right.
all right.
Tuesday.
So there are fires.
Oh,
Yes.
Yeah, okay, there's no fires out there, okay. Yeah. There's we don't see the smoke, so I mean, so sometimes you don't know there's a fire. I couldn't, I was embarrassed, but I'm not here every day. I couldn't answer him intelligently either, but I will go back and make sure that they know that, yeah, for roughly 4 to 5 a week within our alliance. That's a lot of fires. It's a lot of opportunities to get hurt. Yes.
And again, and that's been a conversation point just in society. Fires are down. Well, the call volume is clearly up, and it still takes the crews to do the job, and so call volume is call volume, and when someone calls 911, they need the crews to go there and help them. So I mean, that's not to be understated. The fact that call volume is universally up dramatically for everywhere.
Yeah, and actually, it really doesn't matter if it's not a fire this week. If the call volume's up and there's nobody in the station and your house catches fire, that's
Yeah.
a problem.
That's a real problem. Yeah.
It's not a matter of frequency, it's a matter of whether somebody's here to take care of it.
One other note, if I may, and this is going off the November 30, the finalized number from November 30th. On the year, if my quick math is right, we've received mutual aid 289 times into our district. 200 of which came from Wheaton. So it's 289 times. Now, it's not necessarily 289 times where we couldn't respond, because when there's a fire, everybody comes running. But there's certainly a lot of those. I'd say the vast majority of those are instances where we simply needed additional personnel to help fulfill the needs of our district. So.
Yeah, I mean, we can go into more detail at a future meeting, but a lot of that is second, third, fourth ambulance requests and things of that note. So if you have an ambulance request for, say, a chest pain patient, in all of our agencies, that's a fire company and a medic company response for all of the obvious reasons. And if our medic unit and our engine is out and we get a second call, a third call, that could be what is referred to, it's a CAD code. I don't like the term, but it is a actual term, an invalid assist, where it's a lift assist. Someone needs help getting up some stairs, whatever. That's a medic only call. If it's a lot of other things, it could be a medic and an engine. So if all of our companies are out, that's two apparatus that are, or two companies that are being drawn from another neighboring agency. Our people, again, going back to the fact they're, I can't even begin to express how much I love and respect them, what they do. The engine company does everything they can to make sure that things are good, get back so that they can handle that second ambulance call. And you guys know that the second ambulance rolls a lot in our town. And that's the engine crew getting back, getting in the second medic unit, responding, and then chasing with the brush truck. Or if, depending on the nature of the call, or just the lieutenant will also just drive the ambulance. But all that, but then after that second call, then the third one comes in, and the fourth one, which happens more often than people would think. And there's literally nothing left.
Yep. Absolutely.
I think it's a good idea to maybe spend a little bit more time on that. It educates the board. It educates the public that's viewing on probably one of the most important things that you do, which is out there putting out fires and saving lives and helping people, you know? So I'd like to maybe adjust the agenda where we talk about that a little bit longer, if it's okay with you, Chief.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
George, I'd also like to point out, I want to introduce Julie, she's my neighbor.
Oh, hi, Julie.
Hello.
She's pumped, to see what's going on, and she's a supporter of the fire district, so I wanted to welcome her here.
Thank you, Julie. I also want to compliment you, Phil, for taking the time to bring Julie down to the station and have her sit down with the chief and talk. The little things are the big things that make that make big results. So thanks a lot. Thanks for your time.
It was
Thank you.
extremely enlightening. We have no idea
No.
Which, by
what
the way,
goes on.
I want you to add this.
Oh, a gift. It's Christmas again.
I know it's not the same as a bottle of whiskey acres, but
For the check, man. Phil got a special blue popcorn run.
Oh, did he? Okay.
It's absolutely, the conversation we had is, people don't know the half of the goes on.
No.
So, and a lot of it's not understandable to us either, and that's, Phil and I had a conversation about the referendum on that very fact, but it's amazing what these guys do. We just don't even know.
No.
What we look at is, how come there's 2 fire stations and you want a third one over there? It's because it's all we know, and
Right.
when somebody comes and asks us for money when our texts are so high, we're like, nobody understands. And that's what Phil and I have been talking about. How do you make it understandable? So we get these things passed. You have your fund, you have your new house,
Right. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely.
I hope we see you again.
You will. Phil will make me.
She captive audience.
Just blink twice if you need.
I'll go on to new business. We need to discuss and adopt corporate resolution for a Visa card then.
Our current Visa card bank is State Bank of Illinois. They're getting out of the Visa card business in the next year and a half. They've started contracting with this other corporation, and it's basically TCM Bank. That's all they do is credit cards. And so they're going to have a partnership with them. So the first thing that requires a corporate resolution before we submit the application process to
And
search.
what do we use these for?
Both of the chiefs have one, and I have one for anything we need to purchase that we
Oh,
don't.
okay, so it's just the card. that you use. Oh,
Yeah,
right. I didn't know if that was that or if people
Yeah.
were paying their ambulance bill.
Oh, no, it's just administrative.
Okay.
So I need a roll call vote for that.
Need a motion in a
I
second.
make a motion, we
was
adopt
busy.
the corporate resolution for the Visa card.
I second that.
President Callis.
Yes.
Secretary Stats.
Yes.
Treasurer Hannah.
Yep.
Trustee Simpson.
Yes.
I'm gonna be getting signatures from you guys before.
Not a problem. I won't leave until you tell me I can't. We all know who the real boss is.
About time.
Discuss and take action on a letter of resignation from Chris Sylvia.
I make a motion to accept the letter of resignation. We've got it, just right.
I'll second that.
Roll call, vote on that?
President Callis.
Yes.
Secretary Stats.
Yes.
Treasurer Hannah.
Yep.
Trustee Simpson.
Yes. I would just like to say Chris Levan spent a lot of time here, put a lot of effort in and did a great job. I did have a nice conversation with him. I wish him the very best. Told him he's always welcome to stop in and
Absolutely.
and show up. He's certainly did a great job.
And for those that didn't hear, Chris was the chairman of the fire commission that handles the hiring, fire and disciplinary disciplinary actions for the full-time firefighters. It's a board that I served on. It's a board that George served on under Chris's leadership. Chris was there for 13 years and just did a heck of a job for all
Really
those.
did a
So,
good job, yeah.
yep.
And we're here to fill that void tonight, hopefully. We need to discuss and take action on letters of interest to serve on the Board of Fire Commission. We had 2 letters submitted. In our packet. One of the people interested in this position is here, Janice.
And there's the other
The other
is
was
electronically here.
electronically here, Mr. Wahlberg. I hope I pronounced your name right, Kyle.
So this is something you can talk about in closed session if you like.
I think this would be something that would be better served in closed session.
Do we need to have a motion to move it to?
Yeah, when you're ready to go into closed session, we'll have a motion to go into closed session and talk about the appointment of them.
Perfect.
Someone to the
And
public
we're just
office.
gonna move into it, then make decision, make an action after we come on.
Correct.
Okay.
Good deal. Thank you.
And then we need to approve a purchase for a new fire engine. It says ours keeps breaking. Since ours doesn't want to run. Chief, you want to go over some of
Yes,
that?
in the packet was a memorandum to the effect. So we received 4 sealed proposals as indicated in the memo. We had asked them as part of their submission for any kind of prepayment discounts, financing related matters, so that we could deduce what the best use of public funds would be with respect to the purchase of this expensive capital purchase. First off, Lieutenant Fermento, who was in charge of the committee, Lieutenant Roman, firefighter Burke, and DC Armour. I put him to work on a lot of things when he started. That was one of them. And I too, along the way, we had several of us had invested a lot of time, everything from going and visiting facilities, going out seeing other agencies in use apparatus, talking to customers and clients, visiting places, meeting with vendors, going through all that stuff with respect to maintenance, all those kinds of issues. Given the supplied bids, as is indicated in my memo, the members, all recommended Sutphen, as do I. That was our recommendation for a variety of reasons. Now, in our investigation, several of the vendors, of which they were one, offered heavy duty chassis. So I want to take a step back for a moment, and something that we have said to the board for many months now was this. The philosophy of the administration with respect to apparatus, ambulances, fire engines, any other type of apparatus we have is simple. Simple does not necessarily mean cheap. Simple, well built. So we're looking for, as a former Army Cavalry Scout, a tank. So bulletproof apparatus, something we don't want bells, we don't want all that stuff, we don't want heads-up displays, all that, just a really sturdy, well-built, rugged apparatus to last long-term and deal with heavy use. Because again, people don't often realize, in the grand scheme of things, ours is a busy municipal department. And an apparatus that would be perfectly well suited for a smaller agency that runs a few dozen calls a year isn't what we need. We need
Need a workhorse.
Need a workhorse. So that was the philosophy we took in. So that was the overarching part of our evaluation, of which several of the submissions offered heavy duty cabs and chassis, of which the recommended selection is one. The warranties were all acceptable across the range. I want to point out another thing, that this apparatus is not replacing the 2008 that's sitting outside. It is replacing a 1992 engine, which has been non-functioning for several years. The water tank rotted out of it. The frame rails are rotted. The front axle is not currently connected. And so it's replacing that vehicle.
And just to tack on to that, the 08 that's sitting here will then become the reserve.
Correct. The 2008 will become reserve. So to that point, the National Fire Protection Association has standards that govern everything. One of the standards is 1901, the standard for automotive fire apparatus. In NXT, anyone can log on to the NFP. You can establish an individual account. You can go look up these standards and read the stuff for yourself. In NXT, they don't recommend frontline service over 15 years. By the time we get the new vehicle, it will likely be right at that point, keeping in mind that we're a busy urban department, not a smaller, more rural agency that doesn't run as many calls, which is actually also indicated in that same annex in the NFPA standard, is that for the kind of use that we use, it should be more of an 8 to 10 year vehicle. If that's 13 currently, so it's actually past its expected life expectancy. That one outside is currently.
Question.
Yes.
In light of issues with the OOP engine that got repaired, I'm assuming that we were getting the frame rails sprayed or treated along with plastic water tanks and plastic gas.
So that goes into the warranty issues. The frame on this particular apparatus, I believe, is painted. However, it has a lifetime frame warranty. Okay. That was one of
What was that?
one of our big points.
How long is lifetime? Mine or the engines? Lifetime normally a 10-year span, is that kind of?
Be a rep or something if you don't mind me throwing.
No,
this
this
in
is
here.
kind of.
It's a true lifetime one.
Okay, so as long as we own.
We don't limit it to 20 years or 50
Okay.
years, it's 75, it's however long you.
Okay, good. Good answer, thank you.
Yeah, trade-in values. I mean, there's a lot of things to discuss under that annex in the NFPA standard. So for that and many other reasons, that led us to the conclusion. And then when you see the pricing, so they came in at legacy fire equipment, as you can see, $561 for the fire service for the KME, $611. Fire servicing for NE1, 707, and Ace Fire for our 606. So when you look at the price points, They came in dramatically low, met our standards without exception. The spec that the team designed, because they designed, again, going for what Winfield needed and for something that was heavy duty. So for all those reasons, that alone is a compelling reason. But on top of that, it met all of our needs well. And with that, I'm going to throw it over to the deputy chief, and then
Yeah.
probably over to Lieutenant Rome Fermento.
Yeah, so these guys spent a lot of time looking at all the rigs, and then again, going back to one of those things that's most important for me, if things break, what's the downtime like? What's the turnaround time on repairs? And so there's really not a lot of stuff that's out there, but I did call around to see. Legacy's will be the repair shop. They're located down Joliet, not too far, not terribly out. And then I called Argonne, a friend of mine is the chief over there. They have this up. And I asked him straight up, how do you like it? Because he gave me a pretty straight answer. He loves it, absolutely loves it. And then I talked to Kerry, a retired Lombard guy who's now the chief up in Kerry. They've gone with all stuff that's 100%. And then a turnaround time, they have a rig that'll come out, will actually do the repairs in-house if they can, and if not, shoot it down there. And the turnaround time is actually really, really nice. In fact, not having a ton of them around here actually probably works to our advantage on the early ends if we can be one of those first ones. So all great reviews for anybody I talked to that had experience with stuff. And that's the most important thing to me, because that has to, we're only here for one job, getting out the door is that job. So that's goes back to the chief and I both in line. We don't need every bell and whistle. We need a dependable rig that puts water on fire. So I think that's what we got. And these guys, Dave, looking at the rigs, he headed up the crew. Brian's great experience, to be honest with you, was really helpful. He's got a lot of background in mechanics, rigs in general, and so he brought a lot to the table on that committee. I have to admit, I went to him and asked more questions than I actually had answers to, so he was awesome. So go ahead.
I spent a lot of time pouring through drawings, pouring through specs, and sitting down with the vendors and going through. Brian spent more time than I did sitting down with the vendors, but went through every detail. And price wasn't the only thing that drove us, but when it comes down to brass tacks, it's real money that we're spending. And the money that we saved by picking the closest spec that was the cheapest spec is going to be enough to spend on our tools that we need to put on that vehicle. It'd probably be more than that. But we still have several other vehicles that need replacement. So that was our main drive, was to save some money and buy a tank that we can put down the road and not have issues.
Well, we've had issues in the past. We've been fortunate that the other communities have helped us out. We've been very fortunate, and very thankful too.
I'd like to make a motion, we accept the legacy proposal. Get that fire truck.
And the minister would like that the board, that the committee found that Legacy was the lowest responsible bid pursuant to section 11K of the Illinois Fire Protection District Act. As authorized, the purchase of a new engine through Legacy pending a suitable contract. So that way.
Whatever you say.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say that.
Yeah.
You jumped right in. I was, talking on it. And,
Sorry.
I'll make a motion of what he said.
yes, sir.
Me adding one thing, the contract will be between Sutton Corporation
Okay.
and the Winfield Fire Protection District. Legacy is the dealer.
Okay,
So the contract will actually be signed between those two entities
Okay.
with representation.
okay, and that's fine, then it's.
Okay, just so that that's the name on the job.
Understood.
Thank you.
Wow, he just said he didn't want to put his name on it.
I got a motion, who seconded?
They fought over it back there. That guy over there, Rob and the other guy.
President Cal.
Yes.
Secretary Stas.
Yes.
Treasurer Gannon.
Yes.
Trustee Simpson.
It's contagious. We're easy to know.
One just quick note, it's in the memo that was prepared for the board. there's a lot of talk in town whenever it comes to buying a vehicle about lease versus purchase. And Chief, I don't know if you want to read what you wrote or I can read what you wrote, but you know, one of the things that I was a firm believer in is that when you pay up front, you save money. As a result of us paying in full, we automatically had $11,235 taken off the cost of the engine, or so that dropped the price from the 561 down to $550,554.12. Moreover, if we had leased it, if I'm reading this correctly, it would have been somewhere in the neighborhood of anywhere from $31,451 to $164,000 in interest that we would have paid over the lifetime of any lease that we would have had available from any of the different vendors.
Yeah.
that we were looking
So the two things are commercially at least to buy kind of an option. And then there's what a lot of people in the community have asked us about, and those are tax exempt leases. Understand what a tax exempt lease is. These are, first of all, these are capital items, and they are, you can't go like you could back in the day to a car dealer and get a 0% for X number of months. These are capital investments, and you pay real interest on them. And a tax exempt lease, what that is, in fact, is not a tax exempt lease. It is a lease where the tax that would have been paid because you're a governmental entity, that pass-through cost of not paying the taxes on the loan they're giving you is passed through, so it reduces the actual loan rate. So in investigating those in a 3-year, roughly 31,000. And then if you add the prepayment discount, $42,000 saving in a 3-year lease, going all the way to a 15-year lease, which would be in the neighborhood of $164,000. So that's real money. And again, just as Lieutenant Fermento had indicated, the cost saving itself will pay for the equipment that goes on it.
And it's not like if you kept the money, it's in the bank.
No.
1% that we might get.
It's creeping up there though.
What was the original budgeted item to buy a truck? Or what was the budget? Or, you know what I'm saying?
Yes, so the annual budget for this year was, we had ascribed $700,000 out of our 2021-22
Oh.
budget for the purchase of a fire engine, the equipment on the fire engine, a command car, and a utility pickup truck. So we will
We will be within budget.
For all those vehicles or just the?
for all of them.
Okay.
The other ones are tiny compared to this. When you're comparing something against $550,000, $50,000 pickup truck isn't so horrible.
And it's not only the savings that we have now, it's next year, when there's no trucks, there's no chassis, they're all gone.
Yeah, by the way, you'll have this delivered next week, right? That was part, is that how that works?
No, I sure wish it was.
Realistically, what is the time that we're looking at? I know you previously said it was probably gonna be in that 12 to 16 month range.
16 to 18 months.
16 to 18. Okay.
So when we began the process, we probably were closer to that 12 to 14. We're feeling the squeeze just like
Yeah,
everybody is.
Absolutely.
We're fortunate in that we build our own chassis, so we're not waiting for Ford to get a microchip or anything that the car dealers are dealing with. Unfortunately, we are waiting for axles and depth tanks and engines and transmissions, because those are the parts we obviously can't
Too
manufacture.
small for those.
Cummins, so we still have an L9 Cummins.
Thank you.
Where does all the equipment on the existing truck go?
It's an excellent question, if I might. So we have a reserve fire apparatus parked at Station 2, which, as I had indicated a minute ago, is currently non-functional.
Right.
So unfortunately, over the years, as equipment on our engine right out here broke, was lost, whatever, we have actually taken it from that to that. So currently that piece of apparatus down at the south side station has, we just looked at it, two pieces of 10-foot long fire hose for what are referred to as the part you connect the hose to for the. So 2 pieces of 10-foot long 1.5-inch fire hose, which we don't use 1.5-inch fire hose anymore, and a road hazard kit. That's the only things that's the only things that are on it. Yeah. So we need to buy all new stuff.
Budgets have been cut so much, instead of buying new, they're just
Right.
stretch it.
Yeah.
It looks like a chicken a turkey carcass after
No,
Thanksgiving.
Ideally, with almost no exception, you want to be able to have a reserve that's fully outfitted. So if something happens, you can just get in, turn the key and drive. And that's certainly not the case. So,
But we will then gain that functionality.
yes.
And that's, yeah.
You want to say something?
Nope, he said exactly what I was
Okay.
saying.
We just
Stole my thunder.
Once again, we just stop it all day. Do I have a motion to pay the bill?
Second that.
You want a roll call on this?
I do.
I thought you might. That's why I asked.
President Cowles?
Yes.
Secretary Sass?
Yes.
Treasurer Hammond?
Yep.
Trustee Simpson?
Yes. We are going to move into executive session to discuss.
The appointment of someone to public office by the public body.
I'll second that.
Roll call.
Did we get an actual motion first?
Roll call.
I think Phil said something.
Did you make the motion, Phil? Oh, okay, I didn't hear anybody make a motion, that's why I was asking.
All in favor?
Any opposed?
We will come
We'll
back.
kick you out and
We'll come back.
catch you later.
We are reconvening into our public meeting and come to a decision on who our new commissioner will be.
I'll make the motion to appoint Kyle Wolver to the open vacancy of the Board of Fire Commissioners.
Roll call vote.
President Cowles?
Abstain.
Secretary Sass?
Yes.
Treasurer Hammond?
Yes.
Trustee Simpson?
Yes. Tim, I thank you for showing up. Kyle, congratulations.
Yep.
Not up there.
He was there and I think we lost him.
Yeah.
Good old.
The magic of Zoom.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Do we need any more public comment?
We added that to the agenda.
I forgot.
Yep.
I'm sorry, but you did it. Is there any other public?
Yep.
I hadn't turned the page. So, okay, there be no further public comment. Do I have a motion to this?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? I wish you, we're adjourned. I wish you all a very Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you.
Merry
Thank
Christmas.
you for everything you've done over the year. We've all managed to survive.
I survived.
We still